This is a program about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see here is not a news broadcast. When investigative reporter Danny Casolaro was found dead in the West Virginia hotel room, his wrist had been slashed 12 times, and his confidential papers were missing. Local police ruled his death a suicide, but Casolaro's family and friends were convinced he was murdered because he had accumulated compelling evidence of widespread government corruption. This is Unsaved Mysteries, a rehosted version of a classic TV series. Knock, knock. Housekeeping. What seemed like an ordinary Saturday afternoon in the summer of 1991, a housekeeper at the Sheraton Hotel opened room 517 for routine cleaning. Nothing could prepare her for what she found inside. Lying in a tub of bloody water was a guest, registered to the room. Clearly, the man was dead. The housekeeper discovered the body of Danny Casolaro, a 44-year-old investigative journalist from Fairfax, Virginia. Within minutes, Martinsburg police were called to investigate. In the room, they found a brief suicide note which read, "To my loved ones, please forgive me, most especially my son, and be understanding. God will let me in." In the bathtub, police recovered a single razor blade. Incredibly, Casolaro's wrists were slashed 12 times, with 8 cuts on the left wrist and 4 on his right. One cut was deep enough to sever a tendon. The reporter's wallet was found in his room with cash and credit cards intact. There appeared to be no evidence of a struggle. Casolaro's body was delivered to a Martinsburg funeral home later Saturday afternoon. However, 2 days passed before Casolaro's family was notified of his death. Casolaro's brother said, "My mother called me, and, she said, Danny's dead. They killed him. And I called the police at that point, and she didn't really know any details. And I spoke with a sergeant doing the investigation. The sergeant said, 'We found your brother, and he committed suicide Saturday.' And I said, 'Saturday? This is Monday.' I asked them why it had taken 2 days to notify us. The sergeant said that at the moment he didn't know, and that he just said that he thought we had already been notified. So I started asking questions. What about all the papers he had with him? What about the investigation what he was doing? And when talking to the sergeant, it was clear he really didn't have any idea about this. And then, at that point, he told me they found no papers in his room. The papers Casolaro had with him in Martinsburg included hundreds of notes and documents from more than a year of investigation. Not one has ever been found. Jack Anderson, a journalist, said, "From the moment we heard about his reported suicide, we doubted it. We questioned it. We wondered about it. It was not in his nature to kill himself, so we were very suspicious from the first. So the deeper we dug into it, the more suspicious we became. Suspicious circumstances surrounding the investigation of his alleged suicide. Danny Castellero's fear of blood tests and other minor medical procedures was well known to his family. They found it incomprehensible that he committed suicide by slashing his wrists from a dozen times. Just days before his death, Danny Castellero enthusiastically told friends he was close to breaking the story that had consumed him in the past year. It had started as an inquiry in a computer software theft, but soon mushroomed into a broad investigation of government corruption that Castellero believed implicated U.S. Justice Department officials. Many suspect that Castellero had been silenced because he simply found out too much. Danny Castellero's strange odyssey began when he interviewed Bill and Nancy Hamilton, the owners of a computer software company called Inslaw. We imagine that in this interview, Danny Castellero would have said something along the lines of, first of all, when the promised software was developed, what was it used for? And Bill Hamilton most likely would have responded, well, there was a big need for this kind of software. The Hamiltons had developed a powerful program called PROMIS, P-R-O-M-I-S, that they claimed revolutionized information management by law enforcement agencies. In 1980, the U.S. Justice Department purchased the Inslaw software to handle their millions of case files. Initially, the program earned high praise and handsome returns for Inslaw. Then the climate at the Department of Justice suddenly changed. In an actual interview, Hamilton said, who's shown here, at the beginning of the second year of the 3-year contract, the Justice Department began to withhold payments from Inslaw. And they withheld a couple of $1 million from Inslaw and drove Inslaw, my company, into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The Hamiltons then discovered that the Canadian government had acquired their software, despite the fact that Inslaw never even sold the program to Canada or anyone in Canada. The Hamiltons told Castellero that they were mystified by illegal sales of their software until they spoke to a man named Michael Riconosciuto. Michael Riconosciuto, shown here, claimed to have worked for the CIA on numerous top-secret projects. Riconosciuto agreed to talk to Unsaved Mysteries about the unauthorized use of Inslaw software by clandestine agencies. Riconosciuto said in this interview, well, the parties that we were involved with, involved in distribution of the software, were involved in covert programs. And they were involved in Nicaragua and Central America. And they were involved in operations in the Middle East. And yes, I have direct knowledge of funds from the sale of this product being used to finance those operations. As early as August of 1989, the brewing Inslaw scandal had drawn the attention of Congress, and the House Judiciary Committee opened a formal inquest. Shown here at that hearing, Mr. Brooks, the chairman, said, "The report describes the committee's investigation into serious allegations that high-level Department of Justice officials were involved in a criminal conspiracy to force Inslaw, a small computer company, out of business." Michael Riconosciuto began telling his story to committee investigators. Within a week of submitting his sworn affidavit to the committee, Riconosciuto was arrested on drug charges by agents of the Justice Department. He is currently being held in federal custody in Chicago, Illinois. While the drug conviction taints Riconosciuto's credibility, the committee also heard from other witnesses. One of those key witnesses had an impeccable credentials. Elliot Richardson, who was now legal counsel for the Hamiltons. Richardson was Attorney General under President Richard Nixon. In 1973, Richardson had resigned rather than participate in the Watergate cover-up. In an interview, Elliot Richardson said, "There's simply too much to be ignored. In the case of Inslaw, there's a spreading radius of circumstantial evidence, which its outer reaches entails is a far more sinister kind of conspiracy than anything revealed in Watergate."